Welcome back to the Unapologetic Podcast. I'm Brandt Merritt with, as always, Jonathan Woodyard, co-host on this weekly, but we had a week off.
Yeah, we did.
How was Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was good. We went to Arkansas. So my wife's sister and husband, 2 kids, they live in Houston. So Gina's mom flew up here, and then we all drove down to met in Arkansas. So Hot Springs, Arkansas. I got an Airbnb. Saw them. It's good. Ate a lot of food. At Thanksgiving, we actually ordered from Cracker Barrel. So we didn't have to cook or anything. And watched basketball and football and sat around, played some games, that sort of thing. But really played with the babies. That was my wife wanted to see the nephews. So it was fun.
That's great. Yeah, I thought that'd be a little mean for us to do a recording on Thanksgiving, so we decided good to take a week off. We were in Rolla for Thanksgiving, which is about an hour, well, almost 2 hours from here with my wife's side of the family, and she's got a lot of cousins and aunts and uncles. We probably had 30-ish people there on 70-something acres. It was beautiful, lots of good food, and lots of, again, playing with the babies. And
who owns the acreage?
So her uncle.
Her uncle owns
her aunt and uncle outside of Rolla.
Okay. And 70 acres, a lot of deer there.
Yeah, it's a good. He's got dogs, and so I think then he keeps them outside. So they probably keep the deer away for the most part. But yeah, there are. I'm sure. There's
I'm always scheming for a place to deer hunt.
Yeah, so. That's a long way to drive. Though. You don't want to drive 2 hours to go.
Well, you never know.
Very hilly though, so you got to go up quite a bit. And he's got his little shooting range on the other crest of the hill, and yeah, it's a nice spot. So yeah, it was a nice break. We had the whole week off. University was closed for the week. Gave me. I felt good that I got my email inbox down to zero.
Which on social media, somewhere you posted that you'd gotten your email inbox to zero. I didn't do that. Did some other things, but yeah, that's a good feeling.
It was a good feeling. I like that. I was much better about that before this job. The inbox is a lot fuller.
My wife doesn't care, so you can check like her Gmail account has thousands of unread emails, and it just drives me insane.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. Well, we're back. It's been a good week back on campus, but it's a quick turnaround. We've got end of Thanksgiving week, 1 week of class, which that last day of class is tomorrow. And then, or if this launches on Friday, it's Friday of this week. And then next week is finals week, commencement's next Friday. And who is our commencement speaker this year?
They scraping the bottom of the barrel and asked me to do it.
They found you at the bottom of the barrel. That's good.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to encourage our graduates. It's an honor to get to speak at commencement. I'm going to talk about the preciousness of time. So I'm not going to quote a lot of Jonathan Edwards because I don't think that would go over well. But Jonathan Edwards is 17th century. A lot of people say the greatest American theologian of all time. Pastor, preacher. He has a sermon on the preciousness of time. That I've read, looked at, but just thinking through, you come to that moment of graduation, and for so many people, you get to that moment. I remember even thinking when I graduated from seminary, sitting there and thinking, this went by so quick. Like it just feels like I just started, and here we are graduating. And so I'd say that's true for a lot of people sitting there, that they will feel like this time has flown by. So my encouragement to them and encourage my own life thinking about it, and my mother-in-law who's still in town, we were sitting around last night talking about it, trying to enjoy the moments of life, right? Redeem the time, make the most of the time, enjoy the moments of life. Don't rush past things. Like your college days went by quickly. Your first job will be here, and then before you know it, you will be a year or 2 years into your job. You may have children, and then before you know it, they're driving. Like Calvin drove 3 hours of our trip to Arkansas, and I'm sitting there thinking, when did this happen, right? It just went so quick.
And we're almost 2 years into these jobs, and that's gone like that.
We moved here, and we hit the ground running, and so time has gone so quickly. So my encouragement to them, and really it's just been me preaching to myself, but enjoy the moments of life. Don't rush past them. Don't always be distracted with your phone, worrying about what's going on over there, but be present where you are and enjoy this, right? We don't know how long we'll get to banter back and forth and talk about these things, so I enjoy these moments. So anyway, looking forward to kind of impressing that in 7 to 10 minutes.
Gosh.
7 to 10 minutes at commencement. Nobody likes a long commencement speech, so try to make the best of those.
This is why we haven't yet asked our friend and Pastor Adam Hughes to do the commencement.
Oh, yeah, if he's listening.
7 to 10 minutes would probably be a
challenge for him.
We love you, Adam.
We do.
7 to 10 minutes would be a challenge. I'd actually love him to take that challenge on.
Yeah.
Now, are you going to pull in I love Edward's resolutions? He's got lots of resolutions on time. Are you pulling those in too?
I'm not pulling. I don't know. I may mention Edwards' name. He's got a few points about why time is precious. You can't get it back. You can't create more of it. That sort of thing. But I'm not going to try to mention his name a ton in the talk. So when people hear Jonathan Edwards, they think of sinners in the hands of an angry God. Right. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing people know about him for the most part. But Jonathan Edwards was prolific in terms of writing. He preached hundreds of sermons, both in Northampton and Stockbridge. So he has just tons of material out there, and so some of it's so helpful.
Yeah, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, the sermon that was turned into a book that's become.
Yeah, I mean, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God was a sermon that he preached, but he preached more than once, and kind of one of the sparks of revival around that era.
That's awesome. So that's next Friday. You got a week left to get your 7 to 10 minutes right. Between now and then, there's a lot happening on campus. So we've got faculty, staff, Christmas dinner celebration tonight, which is always great. We'll honor one faculty member, one staff member with the Life Beautiful Award, which in the past that's been a chapel announcement, but we're going to do it in the faculty staff Christmas dinner tonight, which would be great to be able to honor our colleagues in that way. And then this weekend, there's a number of things. A Christmas parade in town, which stages on campus, and we'll have a float. I'll be walking and handing out candy if you need some candy on Saturday.
I'm trying to look here at the schedule of things. I have them in. There's so many things that have been going on and that are going on that try to write them all down. So you've got, the Festival of Christmas on Sunday. So we just they did the run through in chapel with the orchestra, the chorale, the Bearcat 4.
Which I told Christy last night because I was sitting to the side so I could see, and it was actually during the Bearcat 4, so 4 of our students been doing it for a little while. They're incredibly talented. So I was watching them perform in their part, but then I was also watching some of their friends, fellow students who are kind of in the back, and just their joy watching them sing. It was almost more fun watching them react to them sing than it was watching them sing. But you're right, that's Sunday night.
That's Sunday night. It'll be big. Next week, finals. I mean, some students will have finals this week and will be gone. I know a couple that are taking their tests this week and will be gone. So campus will really start to empty out next week. If your finals are on Monday, Tuesday, students are checking out of dorms. Our Res Life staff's doing all that right now, getting ready for people to leave. But we'll serve late night breakfast on Monday. The cabinet has a tradition of being in the cafeteria 9 o'clock at night. Students come in and we're all standing there. We serve eggs and bacon and sausage and biscuits and gravy and pancakes, all this stuff. So that'll happen on Monday. But then students will start to trickle out of here and we'll kind of wrap up things at work and then shut down. Our campus shuts down for
close for 2 weeks. Yeah. So we'll have all through next week. Then that following week, there'll be a week of campus still being open, but then we'll shut down on, what's that, tomorrow's the 7th?
The 21st is a Friday.
Yeah, right? So the 21st is the last day, and that whole 2 weeks, I think we come back on the 6th.
Yeah, so if you show up at campus on the 24th or so, Christmas Eve, we won't be here. We'll be here on Christmas Day. We won't be here the day after, so shut down for a couple of weeks there. But still some athletic things going on, like tonight, women's basketball at 5:30, then men's basketball right after that. So still some athletic things going on.
So busy, lots on our calendars, but good stuff, lots of celebration.
Yeah.
So topic today that we were going to talk through, if anyone's familiar with SBU and has been either part of the university for a while or just paid attention to us or just familiar with the fact that we are Southern Baptists and Southern Baptists are known for this idea of missions. I mean, missions is a huge part of the Southern Baptist identity, and then SBU has really embraced that. It's part of our mission statement. It's part of how we try to prepare students to be servant leaders in a global society. When we talk about global, that means outreach and going across the world. And so there are some specific ways that we've done that would be good for us to talk through. One of them being the Center for Global Connections and the CGC. There's a lot of trips we have coming up over this next year that we'll talk through in a little bit of detail. But just starting there, when we talk about the fact that we as a university, we talk a lot that we're not a church, we're not the church. And so we're not, maybe what you would naturally think of as commissioning missionaries.
Sure.
A lot of times that's the church or someone like NAM or IB, but we send out missionaries across the world. Why is missions a thing? Why is it important to us? Why do we lean into it? Kind of starting there.
Yeah, we lean into it because our God is a God of mission, right? And, we've talked about this. You go back to the beginning of the Bible, and one of the things I love about the heart of God is how he steps towards broken people. So Genesis 1 and 2, you get the creation narrative. Everything is good, right? It's really good. God calls things very good. And then Genesis 3, Adam and Eve sin and rebel against the Creator, but then you see God stepping towards them. He comes to find them. They're hiding behind a tree in shame, but he comes to find them, moves towards these people who have rebelled, confronts them over their sin, but then in that narrative, you find him, there are consequences, but then there's the first killing of an animal, right? The shedding of blood covers their shame, making cloth garments to cover their shame. And then he doesn't destroy them right there, but then promises a future, promises that there's going to come a seed of the woman, an offspring of the woman who's going to crush the head of the snake. So there's this kind of first preaching of the gospel, Christians have called it, through the centuries. So you go to the very beginning of the story and you find people rebelling against their Creator, but the Creator doesn't kind of wash his hands of creation, but steps towards broken people. He's on mission. So people have seen that kind of idea in Genesis. You see it in places like Exodus. God's people are in bondage in Egypt, and what does he do? He sends a deliverer. He sends Moses to redeem his people, to buy them out of, or to bring them out of Egypt. So you just see this kind of missional heart of God in the Bible. You get to the New Testament, and it's fitting we're talking about this now because Christmas, right, the birth of Jesus. You get to the New Testament, particularly a passage like John 1, and here comes Jesus who dwells among us, right? Here's God, a very God, who takes on the form of a servant, Philippians 2, and he steps into the world. And it's like, why does he do that? Why does he come? Why does he come and dwell among us? Well, here, behold the Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world. That's John the Baptist when he sees the Messiah. Here comes the Lamb of God, the Son of God, to die in the place of sinners, that if we believe in him, we'd have life. So the heart of God in Genesis, Exodus, and then in sending his Son to redeem us, that's one of the reasons we lean in as Christians, as churches, parachurch ministries, organizations like us. We're so serious about missions because God is serious about it. You get the Great Commission in Matthew 28, go and make disciples of all nations, right? You get that passage. Or you get in Acts 1:8, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. So our call to be witnesses to the world, to go and...
Jesus sent the disciples out even before the Great Commission.
That's right.
Yeah,
before the Great Commission, he's sending people out. And so we're witnesses to the world. We're telling people what we've seen and heard. We've heard of the resurrection of Jesus. We've, with our spiritual eyes, beheld him and believed in him. So the Bible calls us to mission. It gives us a picture of a God who's on mission. And so that's something that Christians have just leaned into historically. They've been a people on mission, wanting to go to the world and say, listen, there's a God who created you. You've rebelled against him, but the good news, the gospel, is that God has made a way for you to be saved from sin and death, reconciled to him for your everlasting joy, right? And so that's an amazing message. And there's so many people that need to hear it.
Yeah.
There are people, and we talked about this yesterday, there are literally people on this campus, around this campus, that if you ask them what the gospel was, they could not tell you. That's right here. In a very churched society, people don't know what the gospel is. We have this amazing message and amazing privilege to tell people around the world. So Christians have leaned in there because of who God is, because of the Bible, because of the nature of the message, and we've wanted to share the good news of Jesus with the world.
Yeah, and then that over centuries, and even now decades in the modern history has taken on different forms.
Yep.
There's lots of different ways that's looked. And so there are unique ways that looks now in our context. And so what is, I guess, starting denominationally, Baptist in general, how that sort of has taken form into then ways that we now do it with SBU.
Baptist history is full of people who wanted to live on mission. So you can talk about British Baptists, for instance. You could talk about Andrew Fuller, William Carey. William Carey's wanting to go on mission. Andrew Fuller, his friend, says, "You go, I'll hold the rope." He's saying, "I'll support you as you go. I'll make sure to raise the funds and do that sort of thing, and you go and live on mission." So you could talk about them. Andrew Fuller, a Baptist theologian in England, Charles Spurgeon would say one of the best to ever live. And so you've got guys like that. But if you come over this side of the pond, and you think about just our immediate denominational context in terms of the Southern Baptist Convention, of course, the founding of the Southern Baptist Convention, there's some controversy around why and how it was founded, but it's true, and that's true. And there's some black eye kind of things there that we're not proud of how it was formed. But one of the things that is true is that there was a desire for the churches, for Baptist churches to partner together to send missionaries and reach people for Jesus. A lot of other things there that didn't get right, but that's right. That's a right impulse. And so back in the early 19th century, mid-19th century, the Southern Baptist Convention is formed in large measure of what's been called one sacred effort, and that is to reach people with the gospel of Jesus Christ. So that's been something that's marked the SBC. You fast forward to 1925, and you had churches trying to figure out how do we fund this thing? How do we fund missions? How do we support each other and support these entities that we have? And they started something it was about 1923-24 called the $75 million campaign, where they're trying to raise all this money to support mission efforts. They didn't quite reach that goal, but they were all giving to one pot. And in that idea, we're all giving to this one pot of money, the idea of the cooperative program was formed, and that launches in 1925. And what that is churches in the Southern Baptist Convention said, okay, what we're going to do is, in order to reach people with the gospel and send missionaries and plant churches and do theological education for the purpose of reaching people with the gospel and staffing our churches and so on and so forth, missions, we're going to give to one central pot of money, for just a picture, one pot of money, and we're going to take that pot and we're going to divide it between our entities. So we have 6 seminaries, we have the Ethics Religious Liberty Commission, you have something called the North American Mission Board, and something called the International Mission Board, and there's some other things. But we're giving money to that pot, and then we're distributing money. Well, 50, maybe 51%, I can't remember the exact number, but for every dollar that goes to that bank account, so to speak, 50 cents of it, 50% of it, or maybe a little bit more, goes to the International Mission Board to support missionaries. So Southern Baptist missionaries go to the nations. They don't have to raise support. They're not having to fly back, go to church after church after church after church in order to raise support so they can go back to the field. Yeah. Because churches are cooperating together, the cooperative program, we're supporting them. We're paying their health insurance, their salary, training, all that sort of thing, just so we can have a few thousand missionaries on the field reaching people with the gospel. Now, we also try to do that here, right? The North American Mission Board is supported by a percentage of that giving out of the cooperative program. And the North American Mission Board has 2 arms, Send Network, which is our church planting network, trying to plant churches. So we're supporting church planters around the country, planting more churches than anybody else. And then Send Relief, which is disaster relief, that sort of thing. So all that's missional, and it's being supported because churches have decided to give collectively and support missions. SBU, Southwest Baptist University, is a beneficiary of that program, because at the state level, Missouri Baptist churches are giving to the cooperative program, and part of that giving
stays here,
and then
comes the rest goes toward the
rest goes
national cooperative program.
Right. Some of that giving, to the tune of about $1 million a year, comes to Southwest Baptist University to support this, so that we can provide an education, a Christian education, to these students. They hear the gospel, They're learning from professors who love Jesus, trying to shape them into people who love Jesus so that they can go out and make a difference in the world. So that's a lot. And sorry.
It's your history lecture.
Yeah, there you go. There's a history lecture. Yeah. But that's how it works. And it's all around mission, right? Yeah. We believe we have this calling from God to make a difference in the world. And this university is not like over here doing something else. We're part of that mission and doing it in a unique way in terms of higher education.
Well, the history is important to know where and why things came from, informs how things are. And, without all that history that led to where we are today, we probably wouldn't have the kind of structure that we have on campus now, where we actually create. We support mission trips and sending students out, through that as well. So for us, that looks a specific way through the Center for Global Connections. The CGC is our NAM or IMB, for lack of a better term, because
it's our sending agency.
Yeah, it's our sending agency. So there's a couple different. We do international and we do domestic.
Yep.
Yes, there are kind of two arms of that, sort of how the Southern Baptist Convention works with that, all under the CGC arm. Uh-huh. And every year we have hundreds of students and well over 10, dozen plus trips that go around the world. And accomplishes a couple different things in my mind. We can kind of get into the origins and details, but I think one, it plays right out of that historical Baptist heritage. Like, we should be sending people to preach the gospel. And so we believe in that as a Christian university. And so we buy into that. But then too, for our students, it's an incredibly enriching process. We get asked a lot of times, and most universities we get asked a lot of times about what study abroad opportunities do you have.
Yeah.
So there's this built-in desire. A lot of students I want to go overseas and do something. And typically in a higher education setting, you're thinking study abroad, which we do. We have students that do study abroad, but then we as a Christian university, and then also as a Baptist university that has this heritage and this network with missions, we send students out for mission trips, which is a whole another amazing opportunity. So CGC, what is it? How's it structured?
Center for Global Connections, been here, I don't really know how long it's been. I know over 25 years or so, because Diana Gallimore, who a lot of people listening have a history with SBU, will know that name. She was here, know so many students, so many people have been through her office. So for 25 years or so, she ran the Center for Global Connections. And so you think about 25 years sending a dozen or more trips around the world. So hundreds of trips have gone out from this place to literally around the world. Today, Dr. Kelly Malone, who also teaches in the Redford School, teaches missions and church history. He's been here for a long time. He took over as Diana retired. He's moved into that with Marquetta Garrison and Abby Yon for a while, running the Center for Global Connections. And they develop partnerships and have developed partnerships, a lot of it done by Diana over the last couple of decades of developing partnerships in different parts of the world with different ministries. And in working with those partners, sometimes missionaries or organizations, missions organizations around the world, they're going through and vetting and thinking through strategically, where do we need to be? Where do we need to go? Are there new places we need to visit? Like we're doing Nepal this year. I'm taking a team in May with an organization. Our first trip with them was last year. I took a team to Thailand, and we're kind of filling that organization out and seeing if we want to do more work with it. So there's that type of partnership that's developed by the leadership in CGC, and then they start to recruit team leaders and teams to go to these places. So this year you've got 13 or so teams. You're going domestically, anything from Boston to Baptist Hill, which is here in Missouri, to out on the West Coast, Tim DeClue, taking a bicycle trip. They crazy ride their bikes for days, which is really cool. People are like, why are they doing that? Well, they're actually raising money for this kind of, it's not Habitat for Humanity, but it's something like that.
Right.
But on that trip, they're not just raising money, they're also sharing the gospel, because anybody can ride on that trip. You don't have to be a Christian. And so you might be next to somebody and taking a break, getting a drink of water, sitting with somebody, talking to them, and have an opportunity to share the gospel. So those types of trips. And then overseas, you've got places like Taiwan, where we're doing some disability ministry that we've never done before, or the team I'm taking to Nepal, going into the mountains around Kathmandu to places that maybe have never heard of Jesus.
There's a Colombia.
There's a Colombia trip. There's just all over the place. There people are going to take the name of Jesus and to serve, serving in lots of different ways, orphanages, relieve suffering, meet practical needs, but all at the same time taking Christ with us and sharing the good news and the hope of Jesus. So that's kind of the history. It's been doing that for decades before I ever knew about SB. This was going on, and continues today through the leadership of Kevin Long and others. And we have a lot of trips coming up.
Yeah, and just historically has been one of the largest non-church mission-sending organizations in the country. I mean, we send more than, if you're not NAM or IMB, we are one of the largest mission-sending organizations in the country historically, which is quite the badge of honor. And we don't, I think you touched on it there. I mean, we don't just open the door and say, hey, students, pick a spot on the map.
And go visit.
Where do you want to go? Yeah. And where do you want to talk about Jesus and go? Yeah. So there's some structure in how this plays out, and not just where we go, but who goes.
Right.
So you've planned a couple trips now. I mean, what are the steps that we take to really put it together?
Yeah, we don't just say throw a dart or wherever you really wanted to go visit and go on a vacation, right?
About a missions trip to Cancun.
Right. Hawaii meets Jesus on the beach, which is true. Hawaii doesn't mean Jesus, but so we're strategically developing these trips. Where do we need to go? Do we have partners on the ground? We're always working with partners on the ground, right? So even I'm taking some students over to New Delhi in February, because I'm teaching a preaching course. I'm going to speak at a graduation at a college there, and I'm taking 3 students with me. But I'm not going over there on my own. There's an organization that's bringing me over to do that. When I go to Nepal, there's an organization we're working with. You go to Baptist Hill, you're working with the leadership of Baptist Hill. You're always working with leaders on the ground. So there's a plan. It's not just sightseeing, although that's built in. Of course, we want students to see the world, experience different cultures. So it's built into it, but that's not the main reason you're going. And so these trips are developed with leaders on the ground in those countries. Then we vet leaders here. So I don't just walk into the office and say, hey, I'm taking a bunch of people to Paris, France, which we're sending a team to Paris this year, and put me on the list. So, no. Do we have a trip, a leader, somebody on the ground? And if you want to lead that trip, you can apply and then go through an interview with Kelly, talk that through with Dr. Malone, and then see if you're the right person to lead that trip. And if you are, then you come on. And then it's not just go pick your friends and tell them they can go to Paris with you. No, then there's an application process. You have to apply. You're talking about your faith, how you came to Jesus, your current walk with Jesus, why do you want to go on this trip. There's a whole application you have to fill out. After that, there's interviews. So the leader has been vetted, and now the leader begins to vet people that want to go on that trip.
And leaders can be staff or faculty or students. So we've had student-led trips as well. Yeah.
That's right. Usually students that have been here for a little while have been on other trips, then maybe they're ready to lead something. And so then we start to publicize. So the leaders are in place. The cost of the trip has kind of been worked out. We create postcards. There's a couple of different events where these trips are promoted. And then you start to have people signing up. Yeah. And then they go through the application process. They're going through the interviews. Sometimes students apply for maybe 2 or 3 because they're not exactly sure which one fits best. So they may interview for Boston and interview for Paris and interview for Nepal, and trying to prayerfully decide where are my gifts best used. Yeah. And then maybe Boston says, hey, I don't think this is the right trip for you, but maybe you've got 2 options between Paris and Nepal. And then you're making a decision and you're going to do that. So it's not just there are trips going around the world, go wherever you want, no matter who you are. So no, there's some vetting that takes place, because we are not going merely for us, right? Yes, we want the students to grow. Yes, we want them to be developed and to be shaped into servant leaders ready for a global society. That's true. But the main thing is on the ground, we're serving others. Yeah. Are you going to be a help to them? Yeah. are you going to be the right person to help accomplish the mission on behalf?
Well, because depending on where you're going, there are some pretty dicey situations you can be putting yourself in. So not every country loves having Christian missionaries come and preach the gospel. And so for some of those, you need to be thoughtful about who's coming and who's got the maturity and the comfort level with putting in potentially a challenging situation.
You've got missionaries and organizations on the ground in other countries that are doing very tough work.
Yeah.
They don't need immature sightseers coming over that they're having to babysit. Right. Yeah. Like, hey, you're not actually helping us. Right. This is a hindrance to us. Yeah. So we want to be good partners, sending mature men and women over that are going to be able to make an impact and not be people that go over there, embarrass the institution, embarrass the gospel, and cause a problem for a partner on the ground.
Yeah, and we're blessed. We have a lot of students who fit that bill.
We have a lot of good students,
so that can handle that. One of the things that's specific to our context with sending trips, that's great that the cooperative program can fund missionaries without missionaries having to raise their own support and all those pieces. Well, our students, they go. I mean, we don't have the luxury of fully funding all those trips from the university's budget. So there is fundraising that students have to go through, and there's some pretty creative ways that they've done that. I mean, the best one that I saw last year was, I can't remember which trip it was. It might have been a Paris trip. Did we do a Paris trip last year?
I can't remember.
I don't remember the group, but they put flamingos in yards. So I got mine. Did you get yours?
Yeah, I got mine.
So you got yours with a note on it of like, hey, you've been flamingoed by the trip that's going here. It might have been Boston, actually. And we're happy to remove them. Call us. We'll come get them. But it would be very helpful if you paid us a fee to remove the flamingos. Yeah. And I was like, I will give to that because that's creative and trying to find ways to raise money. But a lot of it's, reaching out to friends and family, churches back home. Because some of these trips, you can run from $1,000, $1,500 up to $3,000-$4,000 for
the trip to Nepal is $3,600. Yeah. It's one on the more expensive end. Domestic trips are going to be a bit more affordable. But I just had a meeting this week with my Nepal team and my New Delhi team to tell them, hey, Christmas time is a great time to go home. And when people ask you, what do you want for Christmas? I want money for my trip.
Yeah.
So maybe you forego the Xbox this year, and instead you get a significant chunk of money for your trip to wherever you're going. So right now, students have been, they've applied for trips. They probably know where they're going by now. And as they go home, this is a season where they'll start to talk to family, to churches, things like that. Some of them they'll come back, and in the spring they do fundraisers. The Flamingo thing's one. T-shirt sales are others. They partner with local businesses. Like one of our trips last year partnered with a coffee shop in town where they did this special night for them, and they did some events there. But then half of the proceeds from that evening went to that trip. So went to the people on that trip. I had a friend of mine, a church in Indiana, who sent a pretty substantial check to cover a portion of all of the team members to Thailand last year. So lots of creative things going on to raise support. And you can jump online, shameless plug for them. You can jump online and go find the Center for Global Connections on our website, and then go through. And there's a drop-down tab once you get to the right place, and you can choose what trip and what person to give money towards. And then that all is counted to them, and we track how much money is given to them for their trip.
Yeah, you can either search for Center for Global Connections, or it's under the Campus Life tab, and then Faith and Life is your landing page. So Campus Life, Faith and Life, and then you'll see information for the CGC on there, and can again click through all the trips and see everything that we're planning to do. It's definitely one of the things that drew me in. Like, okay, this is a serious university that's serious about the gospel and the fact that we do these things and have done it for a long time. So it's definitely something we talk about proudly.
Well, it fits with the mission. It was the mission statement of the school. And I'm going to draw a blank here.
Christ-centered.
Christ-centered, caring academic community. Preparing servant leaders for a global society.
Got it.
And so that preparing servant leaders for a global society, well, how do you do that? Of course, we do that in the classroom. We're trying to do that through discipleship, one-on-one relationships. giving people opportunities to serve here, tracking service hours, but also sending them around the world to serve others in a global society right now, even before they graduate. So it's part of the mission of the university.
Yeah, that's great. Well, again, I encourage you to find more info on trips on the website to potentially support them because certainly I know not every student has raised their full support that they need for their spring and summer trips. So great ways to not just support the university, but support students directly is a great opportunity for that. Anything else on CGC or missions?
No, thankful for the work they're doing, working hard. I mean, Marquetta Garrison sitting in there, she will be the one that helps us buy the plane tickets and gets the visas and the passports and all the stuff. So thankful for her, thankful for Dr. Malone. I know he's got the list of trips on his board, on his whiteboard in there. So he's managing those things. So they're doing good work. Thankful for them, and just thankful that we have students that are eager to go to places, hard places sometimes, and share the gospel. That's an exciting thing to be part of.
Well, we'll have another episode next week, which will be the day before commencement. So hopefully you've got your 7 to 10 minutes ready by next week, and then we can recap again the full semester and start looking ahead to the spring, which lots to happen in the spring. Yeah. So we will see you everyone next episode.